Hi, everybody. It's me, Dean Miller, the dog counselor, here to counsel you about dogs. Thus the name, the dog counselor. I counsel about dogs. A little bit redundant today, but I want to thank you all for joining us today on Wolf Driver channel. If you're familiar with the Wolf Driver, you already know that we have some of the best content about dogs on the internet. We have shows and music and all kinds of information on this Wolf Driver page. If you're a first-time visitor, please check out all the other shows that there are about music, and of course the Wolf Driver himself, who is a guy who actually is driven by dogs. I guess that's also a metaphor too. We're all driven by dogs. Our lives are sort of driven by the love of dogs, but this guy actually literally has cars and carts and things that are pulled by dogs that he's driven by, the Wolf Driver. So thus the name and the brand name of the Wolf Driver channel. He's out there really helping promote dogs and the well-being of dogs and the welfare of dogs. We have shows about news. There's Wolf Driver News. There's Wolf Driver music, and there's a yoga dog. I think they call it Dogga, or anyway, but it's yoga for dogs or yoga with your dogs. So there's some amazing shows on the Wolf Driver channel, but I'm the most amazing of all. Just kidding. I'm Dean Miller, and I teach about training. I talk about training and dog behavior. I've been doing this 15 years or more. I've been teaching dogs. I truly love dogs, and I think I've developed a method of training that nobody else really teaches exactly what I teach. Over the years that I've been working, I've studied many forms of training, and I've worked with dogs in many atmospheres, and I've basically tried to put together pieces of different training techniques and methods that I thought worked. What I found when I was first studying training was that people who had a real sort of dogmatic, excuse the pun, a dogmatic approach to dog training, who thought, well, it must be this way. Those people really didn't really have a handle on how dogs think and behave. Dogs don't have a method. They don't really think in terms of, treats or doing it this way or doing it that way or clicker training. It doesn't have to be a certain way. I just thought if I could develop a method of training that's based as closely to the way dogs communicate and think and are motivated, and if I could teach that language and those methods in a very quick, short amount of time, people would want to know about that. So I began studying all these different methods of training, and I would take pieces. I would say, well, this rings true for me, or I think this really works with dogs, or this doesn't. And I would pick different pieces and choose them and apply them to my own technique. And over the years and trial and error and knowing and meeting with thousands and thousands of dogs, it's kind of become second nature to me. It's kind of an instinct to just work with dogs. And I teach this. And I teach it in a sense like a language. My training is like the language of dogs. I know that sounds esoteric and strange, but it's really not. Dogs are nonverbal creatures. They don't use words. They don't use English or Spanish or French or whatever. They speak in terms of body language, sounds, nonverbal cues. There are many things that dogs use to communicate, and in ways we don't even fully understand. So when you start to tap into their language and their culture and the way they communicate, you'll have much more success with your training. One of the most valuable things in my history when I was learning to train was to work in a boarding facility that was cage-free. And in the daytimes, in the daycare part of the program, from the morning until the evening, the dogs were in a cage-free yard sort of environment. And sometimes we had as many as 60 or 80 dogs at a time. And I would be out there and sometimes be the only person with these 60 or 80 dogs. And if you don't learn how to control and work with 60 dogs at a time with no cages and no barriers, you're going to lose. You better get good at it quick. And I learned in that environment pretty quickly how to shortcut communicating with dogs. The other thing I really studied, when you spend a lot of hours out there with dogs in that kind of environment, cage-free environment, you begin to watch their interaction. And I began to watch and think, how are they sorting out their problems? How are they working things out between each other? And it's all very nonverbal. It is based on dominance often, who's above, who's below, who wins, who loses. It's very animal. It truly is animal. And if you can tap into that way of training or apply it to your training, you're going to have much more success with your dogs. I find that there's a lot of what I call humanized training out there, where owners will train in a way so that they don't have to feel guilty when they're training their dogs. A lot of owners want to train only with positivity, only with treats, only with high-pitched voices and sweet talk and love, love, love. And I believe there's validity in some of that. But I also believe that, like a child, you need discipline, structure, boundaries, and, yes, corrections. Fair corrections, corrections that are not hurtful or harmful or emotionally damaging, of course, but fair boundaries with corrections. A mother dog corrects her puppies when they're young. I encourage you to watch videos. Go look on YouTube at videos of mother dogs correcting their young puppies. It looks pretty harsh and pretty scary when a mother dog corrects her puppies. She will, show those teeth and jump on that dog really fast with a bark and a growl. But it's over in a split second, and the dog learns, don't do that. If you can come up with a human version of that firm but fair correction, it's based on the way dogs communicate like that, it's more fair to the dog. What I mean by that is they understand what you're saying when you say, no, rah, hey, stop. They understand that. That's fair. That's a fair correction. It's not a fair correction when you say, no, get off my couch. No, stop peeing on my carpet. No, you're driving me. That is not fair, because you are escalating the situation, adding a lot of sound, and in essence, it's like screaming at a person in a language they don't speak. So, this school of thinking where you can raise a dog, train a dog with no correction, I just don't agree with it. I think people who do nothing but positive run into problems later, just like a person who's never disciplined their child runs into problems later. So I think it's a balance. Firm but fair, strong but loving, dominant but fair, and really sweet. Sweet on one side, but when the dog is expected to follow your rules or not cross the boundary, you need to be very firm about that. In dog world, dogs respect an alpha dog, a dominant figure. And when I say dominant, I don't mean mean or cruel. I mean strong and confident within yourself. Okay? So that what you're presenting to the dog is a confident, firm leader that is not wishy-washy or questionable. I often go into houses where there are two parents, there's a male and a female maybe, or two different people, personalities in a house, or maybe some kids, and maybe like the let's say the father is the disciplinarian and firm and strong, and the mom is soft and sweet. It's kind of like with kids, how the dad says no, you can't have a cookie, but then the kid says, go ask mom, she'll let us, she's a pushover. If you have one parent undermining the other parent, or one that's firm and disciplinarian and the other one that's sweet and soft, a dog makes individual decisions, and they're very smart. They can say, I can work what I want out of that person. That one's not going to let me get away with it, but that person will let me get away with it. And so you don't want to be the person that the dog can get one over on and look for the weaknesses to overcome. I think that it's just like parenting a child. You have to be united. The two parents, the two personalities have to be united in what they're doing, agree on the same terms, the same methods. So I believe that it's just like parenting a child. The two owners of the dog have to agree on the language, the tools, and agree on what they're going to do to deal with that dog. So I'm kind of rambling. I know I'm rambling, but I do this every week. And those of you who follow us each week know that I ramble when I do this. But I did want to focus on a subject today that I think is really important, and that is when you are adopting dogs. I talk about this a lot, but I think the right dog with the right family, the right person with the right dog, is just the beginning of the best possible way to go. And I talked about this today. I was working with a family that was adopting a dog. I worked with a rescue, and the family came to adopt the dog from the rescue. So I got into a kind of a rare training situation today. I got to work with a family that was two children and their mother, and they were adopting a dog from a house where it was a foster family that was fostering the dog, and so the dog was staying in this home. And I got to go over there and train not only the foster parent, but the new parents that were adopting the dog and the kids. And it was a really fascinating situation because they had multiple foster dogs. They had kids in the house. They had this new dog that was going to a new home. And I got to see all of these dynamics and all of these situations, and I got to help that dog transition out of the foster home and into the new home, which is a rare occurrence for me. I don't often get to be there during that adoption process and bridge that gap. So it was really fascinating for me. The other thing that was really cool was they had all varying levels of puppies and dogs in the house that were being fostered. So I got to see this dog interact with the other dogs at all varying different levels of training and ability and whatnot. But this new dog, the dog that was being adopted, when the family started interacting with the dog, there was just some sort of kind of a magic little bond happening with the mom and the dog particularly, but also the kids. You can kind of see when that right dog is fitting with the right family. And this particular dog was really bonding with this family. You could tell. And so as the mother held the dog, it was just beautiful because the dog was kind of boisterous. The dog was kind of excited. And when the mother would hold this dog, even though she was new to knowing the dog, she would hold the dog and the dog would relax. You could just see the legs relax and the dog relax. And it was just a beautiful sight to behold because you could kind of feel for a moment that the dog really was where it belonged. You could kind of really feel that, you know? And it was very encouraging to me and a beautiful sight to see because I often see people walk in a place, a shelter, a rescue, whatever, and they say, I think that dog's cute. Or they look at a picture online, they say, I love that dog, I want that dog. And then they bring the dog home with a whole different set of issues, you know? And then they bring the dog home and they're not prepared for what's involved. It's kind of like dating someone based on their picture or marrying someone, you know, adopting a dog is like a marriage. You have that dog for 10, 15 years. And if you're going to adopt them based on a picture on the internet or something, you're marrying that dog based on the way they look. And I think it's a big mistake. You want to base your decision based on lifestyle, the dog's personality, and then do you connect? Do you have a connection? So I think that's something to consider. I'm seeing a bunch of comments popping up. I wasn't seeing many in the beginning, and now I'm seeing a bunch. So I'm thinking maybe there was something to do with our connection or something. But I see a comment here from Teresa that says, "What is good for teething pups?" And then she suggests ice. Sure, ice is okay. You know, different dogs have different tastes, just like people. You know, some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla, right? Some people like red, some people like blue. Dogs have different tastes. So you might try different things. Teething, you can often, there are toys just for teething, sometimes rubber toys, sometimes nylabone type toys. Sometimes those are just fine for a dog. Another cool thing to do is to wet a washcloth and really wad it up really tight and then freeze that. And then give the dog that frozen washcloth to chew on and gnaw and let them soften it and pull it out more. You can also take a Kong toy. If you're familiar with Kong, they're some of my favorite to recommend, the indestructible Kong. There are different levels. They have puppy Kong and adult Kong, but the one I like is the indestructible one because sometimes the smaller ones can get caught in a larger dog's throat. Sometimes a real heavy chewer can destroy a Kong, but there's one that's called the Indestructible. That's the one I like the most. You can put peanut butter in there and freeze it. You can put canned dog food in there and freeze it. And then they do make actual teething toys that have that you can freeze. So these are multiple things you can offer to a dog who is teething. But this brings up a really interesting point that I want to talk about with puppies. Dogs cannot help but do this. Puppies cannot help but reach out to the world with their mouth. It's kind of like a baby. You know, they explore the world with their hands. A baby will check things out and pick things up and explore and learn about life with their hands. Well, a dog does the same thing with their mouth. And people find it annoying. They don't want to be chewed on. They don't want to have teeth on them, but the dog can't help it. So we want to make a certain amount of corrections. When a dog is very young, under 3.5 to 4 months, their brain's not developed to consistently retain training and corrections. So we find ourselves repeating a lot. And rather than just repeating and correcting and having the dog keep coming back, it's nice when you have a puppy to, every time you go to play with that puppy, bring a toy. Bring something the dog can redirect its mouth onto other than your hand. So when a dog is teething, when a dog has baby teeth, when a dog is at the stage where they're reaching out to the world with their mouth, bring a toy when you sit down to play with the dog. It's just a place to redirect rather than, you're heading off the frustration in advance. You're heading off the frustration with the dog where you're going to end up upset or yelling. You're heading that off before it ever happens. So just bring a toy with you when you first sit down to play with the dog. And what else was I going to say about teething? Be patient. You got to be patient because they have baby teeth, and those baby teeth are going to fall out, and pretty soon they're going to be adult teeth, an adult dog, and so just be patient because the time does pass, and you're going to long for those days when your baby was a baby small enough to carry around when they're too big to love on like that. So we may be frustrated right now while they're teething, but you'll miss these days, I promise. So let me take a moment to do a little plugging of my book, A Dog's Way. If you're not familiar, I've written a book called A Dog's Way. It's available on Amazon.com. It's also available on my website, thedogcounselor.com. And I always like to plug my dog Henry because he's such a good boy. That's Henry up on my shoulders there. Beautiful boy. He's about 12 years old right now. And this book is full of all kinds of information. It's subtitled, How Dogs Make Us Better People. So it's not exactly a how-to training book. It's more about if we open our minds and our hearts to dogs, how they'll change us and we can change them and change each other just by our relationship with our dogs. Which those of you who are dog lovers out there know that we can change ourselves by having an open relationship with our dogs, and that beautiful back and forth relationship with a dog is like no other relationship you'll have in this world. It's the most beautiful thing ever. So if you want to check out my book, it helps you appreciate your dog more, I think. Let me check on the time real quick. I have to do my own studio work here and check on everything. Okay, we got about 12 more minutes here. Let me look here. Jessica says, my dad is annoyed with my mom's dog digging up the yard and the garden. How can he stop from doing that? Great question. Okay, I get a lot of questions online here that are not easy to answer. This one is pretty easy to answer. If the dog is returning to the same spots and digging the same spots up over and over again, take some of the dog's feces, poop, and put it over in the place where they're digging and bury it just a little bit under the surface. A dog does not like to dig where their own feces is. So you can take that feces and put it in various spots where the dog is digging. So when you go to scoop the yard up or something, it's gross, I know it's nasty, but take some of that feces and put it in the places where the dog digs. That will prevent that digging. They also make, if the spots are more random, they do make deterrent sprays for the garden that you can buy at PetSmart or pet stores or online. You want to look for dog deterrent sprays. I don't like the ones with cayenne pepper in them. They do make deterrent sprays that have a pepper, and that deters because the dog gets it in their nose, they hate it, they get the taste on their tongue, it burns. I'm not a big fan of. I got a new question, and I'm going to have to answer that in a minute. So, I'm sorry, I got distracted by the new question. You want to get a spray that's a deterrent, but is not damaging to your dog or burning to their throat or hurtful. So really look at the ingredients. Don't get the ones with cayenne pepper. The other thing that might be nice, and I think this is a good option, is pick a spot that the dog is allowed to dig, because digging for some dogs is an instinctual behavior that they need to do, that they want to do. It's part of who they are. So I always say instinct is a lot like hunger. You can't fight your instinct. You can deny your instinct, yes, but you still have the instinct. So for example, if I said to you, don't be hungry, well, where do you even start to not be hungry? You know, hunger is an instinct. So to say to a dog, don't dig, that's like saying don't be hungry, right? If you give them a spot or an area that is the digging spot, that they are allowed to dig, let's say, you know, a sandbox type of an area, or you board off something with 4 boards and you fill it with dirt, or, you know, something that is diggable but doesn't make mud or a mess. And then you can anchor toys in there. You can, every time you pick up toys from the yard, you can put them back in that spot. You can bury them a little under the surface. You just keep encouraging the dog to return to this digging spot so they have an outlet for the instinct instead of your garden. So I always say, if you make a choice black and white for a dog, make it positive or negative, right or wrong, it's easier for the dog to get their mind around. It's when we make things gray and difficult, and you know, the dog is digging in one area, we yell at them, they dig in another area, we yell at them, but they don't know why we're yelling at them, right? We have to make it specific to the behavior. So if you have deterrent sprays, poop in the areas they're not supposed to dig, and then an area that's full of toys and very exciting to dig in, the dog is going to make a very easy, obvious choice where to dig, right? Give them a play box, an area. If you don't like sand, or you don't like mud, or you don't want them to get dirty, don't put that stuff in there, but put something that they can feel like they're digging or feel like they're involved or something in that little play area. Give them a play area to have an outlet for that energy. Okay, so I have this question here, and this is the strangest question. It's from Jen, and she says, how's the best way to train a shy dog? And it's spelled C-H-I, so I'm guessing that's Chihuahua. Maybe you can correct me there. But what a broad question. What's the best way to train a Chihuahua dog? Like any other dog, train them. But you know, that's like saying, what's the best way to learn nuclear physics? Well, learn it. I don't know. I mean, it's something I can't answer in one sentence on a training program on a Facebook feed like this. I just give you general ideas, some tips and things like that. And if you want to get more in depth about training, I highly recommend that you explore more of what I do at thedogcounselor.com. That's my website, thedogcounselor.com. If you'd like to set up in-home training, I come to your home for 90 minutes, and I do 90-minute sessions, and in that time you will see dramatic results with your dogs. My training is based on the way dogs communicate with each other. So if we work together and I teach you some things, you're going to see that oh, wait a minute, I got another question. I'll address that in a minute. Yes, so I do 90-minute sessions, and you will see dramatic results because my training is based on the way dogs communicate with each other, and they understand what we're doing right away, so the training goes fast. And if I teach you these methods, you're going to be off and running with your dog. If you don't live in the Nashville, Tennessee area, which is where I live, I do fly to anywhere in the world. I do sessions all over the place. I will go anywhere you want to hire me. I would be happy to teach your dog in any place, anytime. I also do Skype sessions, phone sessions. I can talk to you over the phone or Skype if you decide you want lessons there. I'd be happy to teach you. Just contact me through thedogcounselor.com or my email address, which is dean@thedogcounselor.com. And then I see this question here. Jessica followed up with the question, do dogs dig because they're bored? Oftentimes, yes. Oftentimes it's to entertain themselves. Sometimes a dog digs to find prey. You know, they'll hunt underground animals, moles or gophers, or or underground. You know, they'll sense that there are worms under there. You know, a dog is a predatory animal. If they're left to their wild instincts, they have to hunt for food, and sometimes that hunting is underground. So they dig, following an ancient instinct in them from years of history, to chase prey underground. But that instinct sticks with them, and they do it. You know, sometimes we have things we do that are like ancestral what's the word I'm looking for? Genetic prehistoric things that are stuck with us, you know, that we do. Animals are the same way. They dig because that's what their species has done for years and years, and even when they live in the city with humans and they don't need the instinct anymore, they still have it. They still have the desire and the feeling to dig. Sometimes dogs just enjoy it. It's fun. It's entertaining. Sometimes there's a prize under there. They find something hidden. Sometimes they're trying to escape. There are all kinds of reasons a dog might dig. Sometimes, and this is another thing dogs do, if it's very, very hot outside, a dog will often dig until they find cooler dirt underneath, and they can lay in that cooler dirt and cool off. So that's another reason dogs will dig, and sort of nesting instinct to get cooler and feel better in the dirt underneath. But yes, boredom is a very common cause for digging. So often if your dog is exercised a lot, tired, doing different things, and entertained, they won't feel as much of a need to dig. Let me check here. Okay, I got 4 minutes left. If we have any questions, I got 4 minutes left. I always want to thank you guys for this opportunity, because I learned so much just by talking and sharing what I know about dogs. I do this show on the Wolf Driver channel every Sunday and Thursday. I do Sundays at 6 o'clock, and I do Thursdays at 8 o'clock right here on the Wolf Driver channel. As I've said, the Wolf Driver channel is full of great dog programming and dog info. They're a great resource for different news stories, pictures, music. It's really just a celebration of the love of dogs is what Wolf Driver is. And I want to thank Bill Hellman and the team there who have allowed me to have this outlet and this opportunity to talk about dogs every week. Please join us both times, Sunday nights at 6 and Thursday night at 8 Central Time. That's Central U.S. time, from wherever you're watching. Let's see here. I have a couple more comments here. Your dog is hard-headed. Okay, well, many dogs are. Do dogs dig? Oh yeah, I got that one. I had a puppy that, I can't see this. I had a puppy that didn't lose his baby teeth. Is that normal? Depends on the age. I think that's odd, but I would check with a veterinarian. I'm not a vet, so I do not have. I don't have veterinary experience, or I can't give medical advice, so I do not know about the teeth question. But if you want to check that out with your veterinarian, I highly recommend you talk to your veterinarian. And again, I want to thank you guys for joining me. I hope you'll tell your friends and share. You can share this page, share my information, thedogcounselor.com. Let's spread this far and wide. I think the more you educate people about dogs, the happier the dogs are, the happier the people are. I think just spread the word, and let's really help educate people and lift people up about dogs. Again, even when I'm not on the air, you can email me, dean@thedogcounselor.com. Ask me questions. I do Skype and phone call sessions. I also do in-person sessions anywhere in the world. And if you're locally in Nashville, you can get them much cheaper. So I do 90-minute sessions in Nashville. And give me a call or email me, dean@thedogcounselor.com. I really appreciate you tuning in. And join us again next time. Will be Thursday at 8 o'clock. Thank you guys, and have a good night. Bye.